I sent the text to the wrong number at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and by midnight, 3 men in black suits were standing outside my apartment building. I didn't know they were there yet. I was still inside, staring at my phone, a hard, nauseous thud starting low in my chest as I read the reply that had come back 60 seconds after I hit send. The message was supposed to go to Rebecca at the Women's Legal Aid nonprofit, a desperate, meticulously documented case file about my stalker ex, complete with transaction patterns, shell company names, and a final line that read, "If I disappear, start with these accounts." The reply that came back was not from Rebecca. "You have 1 hour to be at Pier 68, Warehouse 3. If this is bait, you'll regret wasting my time. If it's real, we talk. Wrong number." I'd sent 15 pages of evidence, screenshots of Caleb's threatening messages, photos he'd taken of me from across the street, transaction records I'd pulled illegally from my company's fraud database, to a complete stranger. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone when it buzzed again. 58 minutes. I should have ignored it. Should have assumed it was some random person, blocked the number, and prayed they deleted everything without reading it. But something in the tone of those messages, calm, precise, expectant, made my stomach twist. Whoever I'd texted knew exactly what they were looking at, and they wanted to meet. I grabbed my keys, my pepper spray, and the backup flash drive I kept in my kitchen drawer. If this was a trap, at least I'd have proof that I'd tried to do something about Caleb before he finally killed me. I locked my apartment door and headed down the narrow stairwell of my building, my sneakers quiet on the worn steps. It was past midnight now, and the hallway was silent except for the hum of someone's television through thin walls. I pushed open the front door and froze. 3 men stood on the sidewalk directly in front of my building, black suits, hands clasped in front of them, faces utterly expressionless. They weren't pretending to be waiting for someone else. They weren't looking at their phones or talking to each other. They were looking at me. My pulse spiked so fast I felt dizzy. One of them stepped forward. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running through his left eyebrow. "Mara Ellison?" I couldn't breathe. "How do you know my name?" "You put it in the text." His voice was flat, professional. He gestured toward a black SUV parked at the curb, engine running. "We're here to take you to Pier 68. I can take the subway." "No," he said simply. "You can't." The other 2 men moved closer, not touching me, not threatening, but positioning themselves so that running back into my building or down the street would be pointless. My mind raced. If I screamed, would anyone come? If I ran, how far would I get? But the truth was, whoever had my evidence file could destroy me whether I got in that car or not. And if they'd wanted to hurt me, they wouldn't have sent a meeting invitation first. "Fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "But I'm tracking this route on my phone, and if anything happens to me, it gets sent to 3 different people automatically." It was a bluff. I didn't have that set up. The man with the scar almost smiled. "Smart. Get in." I climbed into the back seat, and one of the men slid in beside me while the other 2 took the front. No one spoke during the drive. I kept my phone in my hand, watching the route, memorizing street names, trying to control my breathing. 28 minutes later, we pulled up to Pier 68. The warehouse loomed in front of us, dark except for a single light above the entrance. The men got out first, and Scar opened my door, waiting. I stepped onto the cracked asphalt, my legs unsteady. "Inside," he said, gesturing toward the warehouse door. "Now." I didn't move. Who am I meeting? Someone you don't want to keep waiting. The other 2 men flanked me, and I walked through the door, my pulse roaring in my ears. The warehouse was mostly empty, just exposed beams and concrete floors lit by industrial hanging lights. At the far end, a man sat behind a desk that looked wildly out of place in the cavernous space, sleek, modern, expensive. He didn't look up when I approached. Instead, he was reading something on a tablet, his fingers swiping slowly across the screen. Dark hair, sharp jawline, a suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. He looked like he belonged in a boardroom, not a warehouse at midnight. Finally, he glanced up. His eyes were pale gray, cold and assessing, and they pinned me in place like a specimen under glass. "Sit," he said. It wasn't a request. I sat in the chair across from him, gripping the edge of the seat to keep my hands from shaking visibly. He turned the tablet toward me. My own screenshot stared back, Caleb's messages, the transaction records, everything. "You sent this to my private number," he said. His voice was low, controlled, laced with a Russian accent. A number that fewer than 10 people in the city have access to. So my first question is, who gave it to you? No one, I said quickly. I was trying to text someone else. I mistyped the number. His expression didn't change. You mistyped? Yes. And the person you meant to text, who were they? A legal advocate, someone who helps women with stalking cases. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with the kind of focus that made my skin prickle. You're a fraud investigator at Sterling Financial, junior analyst. You've been there 3 years. Your mother has stage 3 lung cancer. Your brother is 19 and still in community college. Ice slid down my spine. How do you included your name in the text. It took my people 11 minutes to pull your entire life. He tapped the screen. Now, tell me about Caleb Ward. Hearing his name in this stranger's voice made my stomach lurch. He's my ex-boyfriend, I said, forcing the words out. We broke up 2 years ago. He won't leave me alone. And these transactions? He swiped to a different screenshot, one of the patterns I'd flagged. You pulled these from your company's internal system. It wasn't a question. I swallowed. Yes. That's illegal. I know. So why risk it? Because no one believes me. The words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care anymore. I was too tired, too scared, too angry. I filed reports with the police. I went to HR. I documented everything. And every time, Caleb twisted it around, made me look unstable, made it seem like I was the problem. So I started looking for proof myself. Real proof. Something no one could ignore. His gaze didn't waver. And what did you find? I hesitated. This was the part that terrified me. Caleb's been moving money, I said slowly. Small amounts, but consistent. He's using shell companies, fake vendor accounts, routing payments through businesses that don't exist. I thought maybe he was laundering money for himself. But then I saw the pattern. What pattern? The companies he's using. They're linked to a logistics firm, Volkov Security and Transport. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. His expression remained perfectly neutral, but something shifted in his eyes. Something dangerous. You pulled financial records on my company, he said quietly. Oh God, my mouth went dry. I didn't know it was yours, I swear. I was just following the money trail from Caleb's accounts, and it led to me. He stood, and even though he didn't move toward me, I felt the threat of it. Which means you either work for someone who wants to destroy me, or you're the unluckiest woman in New York. I don't work for anyone, I said, my voice shaking now. I'm just trying to stop Caleb from ruining my life, that's all. He walked around the desk slowly, his hands in his pockets, his gaze never leaving my face. Caleb Ward is a data analyst for a subsidiary of Viktor Lebedev's operation, he said. Viktor has been trying to infiltrate my port contracts for 6 months. Your ex-boyfriend is one of his entry points. Small, invisible, moving money and information through channels I didn't know were compromised. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear him. You handed me a schematic of Viktor's backdoor into my network, he continued. Which means you're either bait or you're valuable. I'm not bait. Then prove it. How? He stopped in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Work for me, he said. I blinked. What? You see patterns my best analysts miss. You're meticulous, precise, and desperate enough to break the law for answers. His voice was calm, clinical. I need someone who can track Viktor's financial movements and predict where Caleb will surface next. In exchange, I'll protect you from your ex and make sure you don't lose your job or end up in prison for illegal access. You want me to spy on Caleb. I want you to do what you're already doing, but with resources, protection, and a guarantee that when this is over, you'll still have a life. I stared at him, my mind racing. This man was dangerous. Everything about him screamed power, control, and violence held on a very short leash. But he was also offering me something no one else had. Belief, protection, a way out. What's the catch? I asked. A faint smile touched his mouth, sharp, humorless. You'll pose as my girlfriend, publicly. Victor needs to see that the woman his asset has been stalking now belongs to me. It'll draw him out, force him to move faster. Make mistakes. You want me to pretend to date you? Yes. And if I say no, his smile disappeared. Then you walk out of here, and I forget this conversation ever happened. But Caleb won't. Victor won't. And eventually, someone will connect you to the financial records you pulled, and your life will fall apart without me lifting a finger. He was right. Deep down, I knew he wasn't overreacting. That was the worst part. The terrifying version of the story was the true one. I have conditions, I said. His eyebrow lifted slightly. Go on. No killing. You don't kill Caleb, and you don't use me as an excuse to start a war with Victor. Agreed. My family stays out of this. My mother, my brother, they don't get touched. Done. And I keep my job. If things go sideways, you help me stay clear of any investigation. He studied me for a long moment, then extended his hand. We have a deal, Mara Ellison. I looked at his hand, strong, steady, belonging to a man who probably broke laws before breakfast. Then I shook it. His grip was firm and warm, and when he didn't let go immediately, I felt the weight of what I'd just agreed to settle over me like a cage. Welcome to my world, he said quietly. Try not to disappoint me. Roman's penthouse wasn't what I expected. I thought it would be all dark leather and weapons on the walls, like something out of a movie. Instead, it was clean, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city and furniture that belonged in an architecture magazine. It felt more like a CEO's apartment than a crime lord's. Your room is down the hall, Roman said, nodding toward the left wing. Second door, everything you need is already there. I turned to stare at him. How did you? I had someone pick up clothes, toiletries, basics. Your size was in your employee file at Sterling. He shrugged off his suit jacket and draped it over a chair. If something doesn't fit, tell me. It'll be fixed by morning. You went through my employee file. I went through everything. He loosened his tie, and I tried very hard not to notice the way the movement drew attention to his throat, the sharp line of his jaw. If you're going to work for me, I need to know who you are. That includes your shoe size. That's efficient, he finished. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start. I wanted to argue, to push back, but exhaustion was starting to pull at me like a weight. It was past 2 a.m, and my brain felt like it was running on fumes. I grabbed my bag and walked down the hall, found the second door, and stepped inside. The room was perfect. Too perfect. A queen bed with soft white linens, a dresser already stocked with clothes in my exact size, jeans, sweaters, blouses, even pajamas, a bathroom with high-end toiletries that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I sat on the edge of the bed and put my head in my hands. What had I just agreed to? The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. I pulled on jeans and a sweater from the dresser, both fit perfectly, which was unsettling, and followed the scent to the kitchen. Roman was already dressed, standing at the counter with a tablet in one hand and a coffee cup in the other. He glanced up when I entered. There's coffee, he said, and breakfast, if you want it. I poured myself a cup and took a long sip, letting the caffeine start to clear my head. So what happens now? Now, you prove you're as good as I think you are. He set down the tablet and turned to face me fully. I'm giving you access to sanitized transaction logs from my legitimate companies. Shipping contracts, port fees, vendor payments. I need you to flag anything that looks like Caleb's fingerprints. What am I looking for? Patterns, microtransfers, round number laundering, anything that doesn't fit. Victor's been using Caleb to probe my financial defenses, testing where the weak points are. If we can identify which systems he's touched, we can lock him out and trace where the information is going. I set down my coffee cup. You think Caleb's been inside your systems. I know he has. I just don't know how deep. His gaze was steady, assessing. That's where you come in. He handed me the tablet, and I scrolled through the first few pages. Numbers, dates, vendor names, all meticulously organized. How much time do I have? As much as you need. But the sooner you find something, the sooner we can move. I nodded and carried the tablet to the dining table, settling into a chair. Roman didn't hover. He poured himself another coffee and disappeared into what I assumed was his office, leaving me alone with the data. It took me 40 minutes to find the first anomaly, a series of small payments to a vendor called Apex Logistics Solutions. Amounts that were just slightly too round, intervals that were just slightly too regular. I cross-referenced the company name with my own notes on Caleb's patterns and felt my pulse quicken. This was him. I found Roman in his office, standing by the window with his phone to his ear. He held up one finger, wait, and finished his call in rapid Russian before turning to me. You found something. Yes, I held up the tablet. Apex Logistics Solutions. It's a shell company Caleb used in at least 3 other schemes I tracked. The payment amounts match his usual patterns, small enough to slip through automated fraud detection, but consistent enough to add up. Roman took the tablet and studied the screen, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at me, and something shifted in his eyes. Respect. My best people didn't catch this, he said quietly. That's because they weren't looking for someone like Caleb. He's not trying to steal large amounts. He's mapping your systems, finding entry points, testing how fast you notice discrepancies. I pointed to the dates. See how the payments cluster around the end of each quarter? That's when your teams are busiest processing high volumes. He's hiding in the noise. Roman set down the tablet and leaned against his desk, his gaze still fixed on me. What else? There are probably more. If Caleb's inside one system, he's inside others. I just need time to trace the connections. Then keep looking. He pushed off the desk and walked toward me, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back slightly to meet his eyes. You just saved me from a security breach my entire team missed. That's exactly why you're here. His voice was low, almost approving, and I felt an unwelcome flutter in my stomach. I stepped back, putting distance between us. I should get back to work. Not yet. He glanced at his watch. We have an event tonight, a charity gala at the Astoria. Victor will be there, along with half the city's power players. That's where we make our first public appearance as a couple. My stomach dropped. Tonight? The faster we move, the faster Victor reacts. And when he reacts, he makes mistakes. He studied my face. Can you handle it? Do I have a choice? No. I wanted to be angry, but he was right. This was the deal. This was what I'd signed up for. Fine, I said, but I'm not wearing anything ridiculous. A faint smile touched his mouth. The dress is already in your room. The dress was deep emerald green, floor length, with a neckline that was just low enough to be dangerous. It fit like it had been made for me, which it probably had been. I stared at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. A knock sounded on my door. Come in, I called. Roman stepped inside, and for just a second, I saw something flicker across his face before the mask snapped back into place. You clean up well, he said. So do you. He was in a tuxedo, perfectly tailored, and he looked like he'd stepped out of some European film about dangerous men who owned cities. He crossed the room and held out a small velvet box. One more thing. I opened it and found a delicate diamond necklace inside, simple but clearly expensive. I can't wear this, I said. You have to. Victor needs to believe you're mine. That means you look the part. He took the necklace from the box and stepped behind me. May I? I nodded, not trusting my voice. His fingers brushed the back of my neck as he fastened the clasp, and I felt a shiver run down my spine that had nothing to do with the cool metal. There, he said quietly, his voice close to my ear. Perfect. I turned to face him, and the space between us felt suddenly too small. We should go, I managed. He nodded, but didn't step back immediately. His gaze held mine for a beat too long, and I saw the same awareness in his eyes that was currently making my pulse race. Then he stepped away and offered his arm. Ready? As I'll ever be. The gala was exactly what I expected. Champagne, crystal chandeliers, people in expensive clothes pretending to care about charity while making business deals in the corners. Roman kept me at his side the entire time, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back as we moved through the crowd. Every few minutes, someone would stop to greet him, and he'd introduce me with the same calm authority. This is Mara, my girlfriend. The words should have felt fake, but the way he said them, with absolute certainty, like it was the most natural thing in the world, made my stomach flip every time. We were standing near the bar when I saw him. Caleb. He was across the room, dressed in a suit that didn't quite fit right, talking to a man I didn't recognize. But his eyes were on me, cold and possessive, and my breath caught in my chest. Roman felt me tense. "What is it?" "Caleb," I whispered. 3 o'clock. Roman's expression didn't change, but his hand tightened slightly on my waist. "Good. That's exactly what we want. He sees you with me, and he'll report back to Victor." "He's staring. Let him." Roman turned me slightly so we were facing each other, his body blocking Caleb's view. His hand came up to cut my jaw, tilting my face toward his. "If you want him to stop watching, you need to give him something he can't ignore." My heart was hammering. "What are you—" "Kiss me." I froze. "What?" "He needs to see that you've moved on, that you're not his anymore." His thumb brushed along my cheekbone, and his voice dropped lower. "So kiss me, Mara. Make it look real." I should have been angry, should have felt manipulated. But all I could think about was the way his eyes had darkened, the way his touch was making my skin burn, the way my entire body was screaming at me to close the distance. So I did. I grabbed the front of his tuxedo jacket and pulled him down, pressing my mouth to his. It was supposed to be for show, a performance, but the second our lips met, something ignited. His hand slid into my hair, and he kissed me back with an intensity that made my knees weak. It wasn't gentle, wasn't tentative. It was possession and hunger and something I couldn't name. I forgot where we were, forgot about Caleb, about Victor, about the hundreds of people around us. All I could feel was Roman's mouth on mine, his body pressed against me, the way every nerve in my body was suddenly, desperately, awake. When we finally broke apart, I was breathing hard, my lips tingling. He stared down at me, his eyes storm dark, his jaw tight. "That," he said quietly, "was not part of the plan." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened. "We need to leave, now. What's wrong?" "Someone just tried to access your personnel file at Sterling Financial." He grabbed my hand and started toward the exit. "Victor's moving faster than I thought." We were in the car before I could fully process what he'd said. "What do you mean someone accessed my file?" "One of my contacts inside your company flagged it 10 minutes ago. Someone used an executive override to pull your full employment record, address, emergency contacts, everything." Ice flooded my veins. "Caleb." "Or someone working for him." Roman's jaw was tight. "Either way, they know where you live, where your family lives. We need to move them tonight." "Move them where?" "Somewhere safe, somewhere Victor can't reach." I stared at him, panic rising. "My mother's in treatment. She can't just disappear." "And my brother?" "Will be protected. I have a secure facility upstate with full medical staff. Your mother's treatment won't be interrupted, and your brother can stay with her until this is over." "You're asking me to uproot my entire family." "I'm telling you that if you don't, Victor will use them against you." He met my gaze. "This isn't a negotiation, Mara. Your family moves tonight, or they become targets." I wanted to scream, wanted to tell him he had no right to make decisions about my life, but he was right. He was always right, and I hated it. "Fine," I said, "but I go with them. I need to explain this myself." Agreed. 2 hours later, I was standing in my mother's hospital room while Roman's men waited outside. She looked so small in the bed, hooked up to IVs and monitors, her face pale, but her eyes sharp. "Mara," she said. "What's going on?" I sat on the edge of her bed and took her hand. "Mom, I need you to trust me. Something's happened, and it's not safe for you and Jamie to stay here anymore. I've arranged for you to be transferred to a private facility upstate. Better equipment, full-time staff, everything you need." "What kind of trouble are you in?" "The kind I'm handling." I squeezed her hand. "But I need you safe while I do it." She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but you call me every day." "I will, I promise." Jamie was harder to convince, But eventually he agreed to go with her, especially when Roman's men showed him photos of the facility and confirmed he could continue his online classes from there. By 4 in the morning, they were both in a secure medical transport heading north, and I was back in Roman's penthouse, exhausted and hollowed out. I stood by the window, staring at the city lights, trying not to think about how much I'd just sacrificed. "They're safe," Roman said from behind me. I didn't turn around. "For now. For as long as it takes." I heard him move closer, felt the heat of him at my back. "You did the right thing," he said quietly. "Did I?" I turned to face him, and all the fear and anger and exhaustion came flooding out. "I just put my family in hiding because I sent a text to the wrong number. How is that the right thing?" "Because you're still alive. Because they're still alive." He stepped closer, his gaze intense. "You think I don't know what it costs to protect the people you love? You think I don't understand what you just gave up? Then why does it feel like I'm losing everything? Because you're not losing, you're choosing, and that's what terrifies you." His words hit harder than I expected. He was right. For 2 years, I'd been powerless against Caleb, trapped in a system that didn't believe me, watching my life shrink smaller and smaller. But now I was making choices, dangerous ones, costly ones, and I wasn't sure I recognized the woman making them anymore. "Get some sleep," Roman said, his voice softer now. "Tomorrow we go after Victor's network, and you're going to help me burn it down." I barely slept. I lay in the dark guest room, staring at the ceiling until the blur turned to darkness, and I must have drifted. Because when I blinked awake sometime later, someone had draped a blanket over me, the one that smelled faintly like Roman's cologne. I couldn't sleep after that, so I stopped trying and instead sat at the dining table with Roman's tablet and 3 cups of coffee, tracing every transaction that even remotely resembled Caleb's patterns. By the time the sun came up, I had a list of 7 shell companies and a web of connections that made my head hurt. Roman found me there at 6 in the morning, still in the emerald dress from the gala, my hair falling out of its pins. "You've been up all night," he said. "I found more." I turned the tablet toward him. "Caleb's not just probing your systems. He's building a map. Look at the timing. Every transaction corresponds with a major shipment or contract negotiation. He's feeding Victor real-time intelligence about your operations." Roman studied the screen, his expression darkening. "How long has this been going on?" "At least 8 months, maybe longer." I pulled up another file. "But here's the thing. 3 weeks ago, the pattern changed. The transactions got bigger, more frequent, like they're preparing for something. A takeover attempt." Roman set down the tablet and pulled out his phone. "Victor's been positioning pieces on the board, waiting for the right moment to move, and Caleb just handed him the playbook." "There's more." I hesitated. "One of the accounts Caleb's using, it's tied to a Sterling financial internal system. My system. Someone used my credentials to authorize transfers I never made." His gaze snapped to mine. "When?" "2 days ago. Before I even sent you that text." My hands were shaking now. "Roman, they're framing me. If anyone looks at those transactions, it'll look like I'm laundering money for you through my own company. Which means Victor's not just coming for me, he's coming for you too." The words settled over me like ice. "He's going to use me to destroy you," I said slowly. "Make it look like you corrupted a bank employee, used her to move dirty money. It'll trigger investigations, audits, media attention. Everything I've spent years avoiding." Roman's jaw tightened. "And when the smoke clears, Victor moves into the vacuum I leave behind. So what do we do?" He was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant, calculating. "We make him move faster," he said finally. "Force his hand before he's ready. If we can get Victor to act now, while we're watching, we can control how it plays out." "How?" "By giving him exactly what he wants." Roman turned to face me fully. "You." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Victor wants leverage over me. He thinks you're that leverage, the compromised bank employee I'm sleeping with, the weak point in my armor." His eyes were cold, strategic. "So we let him think he can take you. You want to use me as bait. I want to use you as a trap." He stepped closer. "We leak information that you're meeting with federal investigators, that you're scared, ready to flip on me to save yourself. Victor will make a move to either silence you or grab you before you can talk. And when he does, we'll be ready. And if something goes wrong, it won't. You can't promise that. No, he said quietly. But I can promise that I'll burn Victor's entire operation to the ground before I let him touch you. The intensity in his voice made my breath catch. This wasn't just business anymore. This was personal. When? I asked. Tonight. There's a compliance meeting at Sterling Financial, routine quarterly audit. You'll attend like normal, but afterward, you'll meet with someone Victor's people have been watching, a lawyer known for cutting deals with federal prosecutors. And Victor will see it. He'll see exactly what we want him to see. Roman's hand came up to cup my jaw, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. Can you do this? I thought about my mother and Jamie, hidden away upstate. About Caleb, still circling me like a predator. About 2 years of being powerless, dismissed, hunted. Yes, I said. I can do it. The Sterling Financial building felt different when I walked through the doors that afternoon. I'd been here hundreds of times, but today every security camera felt like a threat, every colleague a potential spy. I kept my head down and made my way to the compliance meeting, hyper-aware of the phone in my pocket, the one Roman had given me, encrypted and monitored. The meeting was exactly as boring as expected. Budget reviews, risk assessments, policy updates. I took notes, asked appropriate questions, and tried to ignore the way my pulse hammered every time someone looked at me. When it ended, I gathered my things and headed for the exit. But my boss caught me in the hallway. Mara, do you have a minute? My stomach clenched. Of course. He gestured toward his office, and I followed, my mind racing through every possible disaster scenario. He closed the door and turned to face me. I need to ask you about some flagged transactions in your account activity. Oh God. What transactions? I kept my voice steady. Several large transfers that were authorized using your credentials over the past week. The amounts and timing raised red flags in our fraud detection system. He pulled up a file on his computer. Can you explain these? I looked at the screen and felt sick. These were the transfers Caleb had made using my access, the ones that made it look like I was laundering money. I didn't authorize those, I said. Someone must have stolen my credentials. That's what I thought. He closed the file. But when I tried to escalate it to corporate security, I was told to drop it. That it was being handled at a higher level. I stared at him. What does that mean? It means someone with serious pull doesn't want this investigated. He leaned back in his chair, his expression troubled. Mara, are you in some kind of trouble? Yes, so much trouble. I'm handling it, I said carefully, but I appreciate you checking. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. If you need help, the legal kind, let me know, off the record. Thank you. I left his office feeling like the walls were closing in. Someone had blocked the fraud investigation. Someone inside Sterling Financial with enough power to bury evidence. That meant Victor's reach was deeper than we'd thought. I texted Roman as I headed for the elevator. We have a problem. Call me. His reply came instantly. Stick to the plan. I'm watching. The lawyer's office was 6 blocks away, in a sleek high-rise that screamed white-collar crime defense. I walked there slowly, giving Victor's surveillance plenty of time to track me. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Catherine Reeves, greeted me in her lobby and led me to a private conference room. She knew exactly what this was. Roman had briefed her. Make it look real, she'd said when we'd spoken earlier. Worried but determined, like you're weighing your options. So I sat across from her, and we talked about hypothetical federal cooperation agreements and witness protection and plea deals. All while I watched the clock and wondered if Victor was watching too. 45 minutes later, I left the building and started walking back toward the subway. That's when I felt it. Someone was following me. I didn't turn around. Didn't change my pace. Just kept walking, counting steps, waiting for Roman's signal. My phone buzzed. 2 men, 20 feet behind you. Turn left at the next intersection. Car waiting. I turned left and saw the black SUV idling at the curb, the back door already open. I dove inside just as footsteps pounded behind me. Roman's driver hit the gas, and we peeled away from the curb. I twisted to look out the back window and saw 2 men standing on the sidewalk, one of them already on his phone. They were going to grab me, I said, breathless. Yes. Roman's voice came through the car's speaker system. And now Victor knows you're scared enough to run, which means he'll escalate. Escalate how? You'll see. Get back to the penthouse. Stay inside until I get there. The line went dead. I paced the penthouse for 2 hours, adrenaline still flooding my system. When Roman finally walked through the door, he wasn't alone. A man followed him in, mid-40s, expensive suit, cold eyes. He looked at me with the kind of assessment that made my skin crawl. "Mara," Roman said. "This is Detective James Carr. He works organized crime for NYPD. My blood ran cold. You brought a cop here." "A cop on Victor's payroll," Roman corrected. "He's here to deliver a message." Carr pulled out his badge and held it up like he was making an arrest. "Mara Ellison, you're wanted for questioning regarding suspected money laundering and fraud. You need to come with me." "No," I said immediately. "It's not optional." "She's not going anywhere with you," Roman said, his voice hard. "Tell Victor his move failed." Carr's expression didn't change. "This isn't from Victor. This is from my captain. There's an active warrant." Roman stepped closer, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "You walked into my home, used your badge to threaten someone under my protection, and you think you're walking out? I think if I don't report back in 10 minutes, 20 more cops show up with a real warrant for both of you." Carr's gaze flicked to me. "So you can come quietly, or you can make this harder than it needs to be." My mind raced. If I went with him, I'd disappear into Victor's system, arrested, isolated, vulnerable. But if I didn't, Roman would be exposed. "Wait," I said. "I'll go." "No," Roman said sharply. "If I don't, they'll come after you, and we lose everything." I looked at Carr. "I want a lawyer present, and I want to be processed at the main precinct. Not some satellite office." "That's not how this works." "Then I'm not going." Carr's jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he might actually pull his weapon. Then his phone rang. He answered it, listened, and his expression changed. Shock, then anger. "Understood," he said tersely, and hung up. He looked at Roman. "The warrant's been pulled. Someone above my pay grade just killed the investigation." Roman's smile was cold. "Looks like your captain got a phone call." Carr's face flushed. "Victor's not going to forget this." "Good. I'm counting on it." Roman stepped aside and gestured toward the door. "Get out." Carr left without another word, and I finally let myself breathe. "What just happened?" I asked. I called in a favor. A federal prosecutor I've worked with before made it very clear to NYPD that any arrest related to this case would trigger a larger investigation into police corruption. Roman poured himself a drink. "Victor just lost his law enforcement leverage. So we're safe. For now." He turned to face me. "But he's running out of options, which makes him more dangerous. He'll come at us directly next time." "How?" "I don't know yet, but when he does, we'll be ready." I sank onto the couch, exhaustion finally catching up with me. Roman sat beside me, closer than necessary, his presence steady and solid. "You were willing to go with him," he said quietly, "to protect me." It was the logical choice. It was brave. I looked at him, and something in his expression made my chest tighten. "This isn't just business for you anymore, is it?" I asked. He held my gaze. "No, it's not." The air between us felt charged, dangerous. "Roman," my phone buzzed. I pulled it out and felt my blood turn to ice. It was a photo, taken through a window at the facility upstate, my mother in her hospital bed. The message below it read, "She looks comfortable, for now." I couldn't breathe. Roman took the phone from my shaking hands, saw the photo, and his entire body went rigid. "Get your team on the line," I said, my voice hollow. "Now." He was already dialing, but I knew, deep in my bones, that we were too late. Victor had already made his move, and this time he'd gone straight for the kill. The drive upstate took 90 minutes, but it felt like hours. Roman had 6 vehicles on the road, 3 ahead of us, 3 behind, all moving fast enough to break every speed limit, but not fast enough to attract police attention. His men were calm, efficient, deadly. I sat in the back seat next to Roman, staring at my phone, at that photo of my mother sleeping peacefully, while someone stood outside her window with a camera. They're fine, Roman said for the third time. My team at the facility confirmed. No breach, no entry attempts. It was just surveillance. Just surveillance. My voice sounded flat, dead. He's showing me he can reach them anytime he wants. Yes, at least he didn't lie to me. So what do? We end this. He was texting rapidly, coordinating with someone. Tonight. How? He looked at me, and his eyes were colder than I'd ever seen them. By giving Victor exactly what he's been reaching for, a chance to take us both down at once. Another trap. The final one. He put his phone away, but this time, you don't play bait. This time, you design it. Something shifted in my chest. What do you mean? You know Caleb better than anyone. You know Victor's financial patterns now. You've been tracking them both for weeks. He leaned forward. So tell me, if you were going to force them into a position where they had no choice but to show themselves, how would you do it? I stared at him. He was asking me to build the trap, not just be part of it. He was asking me to be the architect. My mind started racing, pulling together pieces I'd been seeing but hadn't fully connected yet. Caleb's obsessed with control, I said slowly. He needs to believe he's 3 steps ahead, that he's the smartest person in the room. That's why he documents everything, messages, photos, transactions. It's not just evidence, it's proof of his power over me. So we use that against him. We make him think he's won. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app, my fingers flying. We let him believe he's finally got what he wanted, me, isolated and desperate, ready to do anything he says. He'll never believe you'd go back to him. Not to him, to Victor. I looked up at Roman. What if I offered a flip? Tell Victor I have evidence that could destroy you, real financial records, testimony, everything. But I'll only hand it over to him directly, in person, somewhere he feels safe. Roman's expression sharpened. He'd smell the trap. Not if Caleb vouches for me. I was thinking faster now, seeing the shape of it. Caleb's been telling Victor for 2 years that I'm fragile, that I break under pressure. If I send him a message, panicked, desperate, saying you threatened my family and I need out, he'll believe it, and he'll tell Victor I'm ready to deal. And when Victor agrees to meet, we make sure the meeting happens somewhere that forces him to bring Caleb, somewhere with records, cameras, enough evidence that even his corrupt cops can't bury it. I pulled up my own files. I can set it up through Sterling Financial's fraud investigation system. Make it look like I'm cooperating with an internal audit that's about to go federal. Victor will want to stop it before it reaches that point. Roman was quiet for a long moment, his gaze locked on mine. You're not just setting a trap, he said. You're building a legal kill box. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't just reacting to danger. I was designing the battlefield. I'm using the system that failed me before and making it work this time. My hands were steady now. But I need your help. I need access to Victor's clean businesses, the ones he uses to look legitimate. And I need leverage that makes him believe I actually have something worth trading for. I can give you that. He pulled out his phone. But Mara, if this goes wrong, if Victor figures it out before we're ready, then I'll already be dead, and it won't matter. I met his gaze. I'm done running. I'm done being the victim in this story. If I'm going down, I'm taking them with me. Something flashed in his eyes. Pride, maybe, or recognition. All right, he said. We do this your way. We arrived at the facility 20 minutes later. My mother was awake, sitting up in bed, looking stronger than she had in weeks. Jamie was in the chair beside her, working on his laptop. They both looked up when I walked in, and the relief on their faces nearly broke me. Mara, my mother reached for my hand. They told us what happened. Are you okay? I'm fine. I sat on the edge of her bed, squeezing her hand. But I need you to trust me, both of you. Things are going to get intense over the next few days, and I need you to stay here, stay safe, and let me handle it. Handle what? Jamie asked, his eyes worried. The people who've been threatening us. I looked at my brother. I'm ending it, but I need to know you'll both stay put until I do. My mother studied my face. You're different. I had to be. She squeezed my hand. Then do what you need to do. We'll be here. Roman was waiting outside when I left, leaning against the car, his phone to his ear. He hung up when he saw me. "They're good?" he asked. "They're good," I took a breath. "Now let's finish this." Back at the penthouse, I sat at the dining table with my laptop and Roman's entire financial team on video conference. "I need sanitized access to Viktor Lebedev's legitimate business accounts," I said. "Specifically, any transactions that overlap with Sterling Financial's vendor systems." The lead analyst, a sharp woman named Irina, nodded. "We have surveillance on 3 of his front companies. What are you looking for?" "Proof that Victor's been using Caleb to authorize fraudulent transactions through my credentials at Sterling. I need dates, amounts, and digital signatures that prove I didn't make those transfers." I pulled up my own files. I've already documented Caleb's patterns. If we can match them to Victor's accounts, we can prove the conspiracy. "That'll take time. You have 4 hours. Irina's eyebrows rose, but she nodded. "We'll get it done." While they worked, I drafted the message to Caleb. It had to be perfect, desperate enough to be believable, detailed enough to convince him I was serious, but not so obvious that he'd suspect a trap. I wrote and deleted 6 versions before I finally settled on one. "Caleb, I know you're watching. I know you saw me with Roman Volkov. I thought I could handle it, thought I could use him to get free of you, but I was wrong. He's dangerous, and he's threatening my family. I need out. I have financial records that prove he's been running illegal operations through Sterling Financial, and I'm ready to hand them over to whoever can make this stop. I know you're connected to people who can help. Please, I just want my life back." I stared at the message for a long time before I sent it. Then I hit send and waited. The reply came 11 minutes later. "You should have stayed with me. You wouldn't be in this mess." My jaw clenched, but I forced myself to respond. "I know. I'm sorry. Can you help me or not?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Maybe." What kind of records are we talking about? Transaction logs, vendor authorizations, digital trails that connect Volkov's shell companies to money laundering through Sterling. Enough to put him away for decades. And you're just going to hand that over? If it gets him away from my family and gets you to leave me alone, yes. Another long pause. "I'll talk to some people. Stay by your phone." I set down my phone and looked at Roman, who'd been reading over my shoulder. "He bought it," I said. "For now." Roman's expression was grim. "But the second Victor agrees to meet, he'll start planning how to kill us both." "I know." I pulled up the next phase of the plan. That's why we're not meeting him anywhere he expects. 3 hours later, Irina came back with the evidence. It was perfect. A complete digital trail showing Caleb's access to Victor's accounts, timestamps that matched the fraudulent Sterling Financial transactions, and IP addresses that proved he'd been working from Victor's offices. "This is enough for a federal case," Irina said. "If it gets to the right prosecutor." "It will." I downloaded everything onto 3 separate encrypted drives. "Because I'm going to hand-deliver it." My phone buzzed. It was Caleb. "Victor wants to meet. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. He'll send you the location an hour before. Come alone, bring the files, and he'll make sure Volkov never touches you again." My heart hammered, but I kept my voice steady. He agreed. Roman read the message and immediately started making calls. "We'll have teams positioned at every possible location," he said. "The second we know where he wants to meet, we move into place. And if he chooses somewhere we can't cover, then we improvise." He looked at me. "But you're not walking in there without backup, Mara. I don't care what Victor demands." "I know." But the truth was, I'd already decided. If it came down to it, if the only way to end this was to walk into Victor's trap alone, I'd do it. Because I was done letting men like Caleb and Victor control my life. The next night, the location came through at 8:03 p.m. Pier 72, Warehouse 5. Come alone or the deal's off. I stared at the address and felt a cold smile cross my face. "He chose a warehouse on your territory," I said to Roman, "because he thinks it proves he's not afraid of me." Roman was already pulling up surveillance feeds. "It's one of my smaller operations, mostly storage, minimal security. He's been planning this." "Good." I picked up the flash drives. "Then he won't expect what comes next." Roman caught my arm. "Mara, if this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does..." I turned to face him fully. Then I'll have gone down fighting, which is more than I've had for the last 2 years. I'm not afraid anymore, Roman, and that's because of you." His hand came up to cup my jaw, and for a moment I thought he might kiss me. Instead, he pressed his forehead to mine. "Don't make me regret letting you do this," he said quietly. "I won't." Warehouse 5 was dark when I arrived, lit only by security lights that cast long shadows across the concrete. I could feel eyes on me as I walked toward the entrance, Roman's men, positioned in the surrounding buildings, watching through rifle scopes and surveillance equipment. But I had to look alone, had to sell this. I pushed open the warehouse door and stepped inside. Viktor Lebedev stood in the center of the space, flanked by 4 men. He was older than I expected, mid-50s, gray hair, expensive suit. He looked like a banker, not a crime lord. Caleb stood beside him, his eyes locked on me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "Mara Ellison," Victor said, his accent thick. "You've caused me considerable trouble." "That wasn't my intention. No, your intention was to hide behind Roman Volkov. A mistake." He gestured for me to come closer. "You have something for me?" I held up the flash drives. Complete financial records linking Volkov to money laundering, fraud, and illegal port operations. Everything you need to destroy him. "And in exchange, you leave me and my family alone, forever, and you make Caleb disappear from my life." Caleb's expression darkened, but Victor silenced him with a look. "Show me," Victor said. I walked forward and handed him one of the drives. He plugged it into a laptop one of his men held up, and his eyes scanned the screen. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he started to laugh. "You're very clever," he said. "These files are real. Volkov's actual transaction records, complete with digital signatures and timestamps. If this reached federal prosecutors, he'd be finished. That's the idea. Except," Victor turned the laptop toward me, "these transactions were all authorized by you." My blood went cold. "What?" "Every single transfer was made using your credentials, your IP address, your digital signature." His smile was vicious. "You just handed me proof that you're Volkov's money launderer, which means you're worthless as a witness and invaluable as a scapegoat." No, this wasn't." Caleb stepped forward, and I saw the triumph in his eyes. "Did you really think I wouldn't check?" he said. "I've had access to your work accounts for 2 years, Mara. I built this frame around you piece by piece, and you just walked right into it." Panic clawed at my throat, but I forced it down. "Think. There had to be a way out of this." "Here's what's going to happen," Victor said. "You're going to write a full confession stating that you've been laundering money for Volkov for months. You'll sign it, date it, and then my men will make sure it gets to the right people. And when the investigation destroys Volkov, you'll go to prison in his place. And if I refuse, then Caleb takes you somewhere quiet, and we skip straight to the part where you disappear." Victor's expression was cold. "Your choice." I looked at Caleb, at the sick pleasure in his eyes, and something inside me snapped. "No," I said. Victor frowned. "No? I'm done being afraid of you, both of you." I pulled out my phone. "Because while you were busy gloating, I was recording every word you just said." Caleb lunged for me, but I was faster. I hit send, and the recording uploaded to 3 different secure servers, one controlled by Roman, one by the federal prosecutor he'd contacted, and one by Sterling Financial's Internal Affairs Division. "You stupid!" Caleb grabbed my arm, twisting it hard enough to make me cry out. That's when the warehouse exploded with light. Floodlights blazed from every direction, and Roman's voice boomed through a loudspeaker. "Let her go, now!" Armed men poured through every entrance, Roman's team moving with military precision. Victor's men reached for their weapons, but they were already surrounded. "Don't," Roman said, walking into the light. His gun was drawn, pointed directly at Victor. "Your men are outgunned, outpositioned, and on camera, if anyone fires a shot. This whole place lights up with federal agents, so I suggest you stand down." Victor's jaw clenched, but he raised his hands slowly. Caleb still had hold of my arm. "Let her go," Roman repeated, his voice deadly quiet now. "Or what?" Caleb yanked me closer. "You'll shoot me, in front of all these witnesses?" "No." I drove my elbow back into his ribs as hard as I could, then stomped on his instep and twisted out of his grip. "I'll do it myself." Caleb stumbled back, and two of Roman's men grabbed him before he could recover. Roman crossed to me immediately, his hand gentle on my shoulder. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine." I looked at Victor, at Caleb, at all of them. "It's over." Roman had warned me they'd be staged a few blocks away, waiting for a signal. The federal agents arrived 6 minutes later, coordinated by the prosecutor Roman had contacted. Between the recordings, the financial evidence, and Victor's own confession on tape, they had everything they needed. Victor was arrested on RICO charges, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Caleb was arrested on stalking, fraud, identity theft, and a dozen other charges that would keep him in prison for years. I watched them both get loaded into separate vehicles, and for the first time in 2 years, I could breathe. Roman stood beside me, his hand warm at the small of my back. "You did it," he said quietly. "We did it." "No." He turned me to face him. "You built the trap. You got the confession. You took them down. This was all you." Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them back. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Maybe." His hand came up to cup my jaw. "But you're the one who stopped being afraid. That was never me." 2 weeks later, I stood in Sterling Financial's legal department while they formally cleared my name. All charges dropped, all flags removed from my record, a formal apology from the company, along with a significant settlement for the unauthorized use of my credentials. I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt empty, because the job that had once been my entire life now felt like a cage. I walked out of the building and found Roman waiting by his car. "How did it go?" he asked. "Clean slate." I leaned against the car beside him. "They want me to come back. Promoted position, better pay, my own team." But I don't want it." I looked at him. "I spent 3 years catching fraud for people who didn't believe me, didn't value me, didn't see what I could really do. And then I spent 2 weeks working with you, and I caught conspiracies that could have destroyed everything you built." His expression was unreadable. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't want to go back to being invisible. I want to keep doing what we did, catching the people who think they're untouchable, building cases that actually matter." I took a breath. "You offered me a job before. Does that offer still stand?" A slow smile crossed his face. "You want to work for me?" "With you," I corrected. "As a partner, your own investigations division, but I run it. My cases, my rules, my team." He studied me for a long moment, then extended his hand. "Deal." I shook it, and this time, when he didn't let go immediately, I didn't pull away. "There's one more thing," he said quietly. "What?" "The fake girlfriend arrangement. That's over." My heart stuttered. "Oh, because I want you to be my real girlfriend." His thumb brushed across my knuckles. "If you're interested." I looked at him, this dangerous, complicated man who'd seen me at my worst, and decided I was worth protecting, who'd given me the tools to save myself instead of just saving me. "I'm interested," I said. He pulled me closer, and this time when he kissed me, it wasn't for show. It was real and right and mine. 6 months later, I stood in our new office, a converted loft in downtown Manhattan with glass walls and enough tech to run a small government. My team of 4 analysts worked at their stations, tracking corruption cases across 3 states. Roman walked in carrying coffee, and I smiled when he set a cup on my desk. "What's that look?" he asked. "I'm just thinking about how far we've come. From a wrong number text to this." He gestured at the office, at the evidence boards, at the life we'd built together. "Not bad. Not bad at all." My phone buzzed with a new case alert, a suspicious pattern in a city council member's campaign finances. I pulled up the file and felt that familiar thrill run through me. "Want to take this one?" Roman asked. "Absolutely." Because I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't waiting to be believed. I was the one building the cases, and this time, the world was listening. The first time I went back to my old apartment, it felt like walking into a life I'd already outgrown. The hallway still smelled like old paint and takeout. The radiator still clanged inside the walls. My unit was empty, just bare floors and the faint outline where my couch used to be. It looked smaller than I remembered. Roman waited near the door, hands in his pockets, giving me space. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," my voice echoed. "I just remember who I was here." "The woman who built a 15-page case file nobody listened to," he said. "The one who texted the wrong number and refused to back down when the devil answered." "That one," I admitted. I walked to the window, looked down at the cracked sidewalk where I'd once stood shaking with my phone in my hand. Back then, the world had felt huge and hostile and uninterested in believing me. Now it felt negotiable. "Ready?" Roman asked quietly. "Yeah, there's nothing here I want anymore." We left without taking anything. The door shut behind us with a soft click that felt more like a period than a goodbye. In the car, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother. "Latest scan looks good. Doctor is cautiously optimistic. Don't tell Roman or he'll send another ridiculous fruit basket." Warmth spread through my chest. Too late. He already had. "How is she?" he asked, eyes on the road. "Better," I said. "They might reduce her chemo if things keep improving. She told me to tell you to stop spoiling the nurses." "It's not spoiling," he murmured. "It's strategic appreciation." "Uh-huh." The city shifted outside the windows, old brick giving way to glass and steel as we moved toward downtown. Our downtown, the converted loft with the glass-walled office, and the analysts who now treated my words like directives, not suggestions. "You're thinking loudly again," Roman said. "I do not think loudly. With you, thinking has volume." His hand found mine on the console. "What is it?" "I keep waiting to feel like this is temporary," I admitted. "Like someone will tap me on the shoulder and tell me I'm due back at the junior analyst desk." "No one is sending you back there," he said simply. "They can't afford it." I laughed, the knot in my chest loosening. When we pulled into the garage beneath the loft, he cut the engine but didn't move. Instead, he reached into his jacket. "If that's another encrypted drive, I'm resigning," I warned. "It's not a drive." He pulled out a small black box. My heart tripped. "Mara," he said, voice low. "I am not good at speeches. When you walked into that warehouse, I saw a problem or an asset. That's all. Then you turned into something I hadn't planned for. A partner." I swallowed hard. "You rebuilt holes in my operation my people missed. You outplayed Victor and Caleb. You terrify federal prosecutors in the most efficient ways." A hint of a smile. "And you made my life louder, less controlled, better." He opened the box. The ring was simple, a clean, bright stone on a slim band. Not flashy, just precise. "I love you," Roman said. "I want you in my life permanently, not as bait, not as leverage, as my equal. If you say no, nothing changes. You still run your division. I still make anyone who threatens you disappear from polite society. But if you say yes, we build the rest together," I finished, my throat tight. "Yes," he said. For a second, the girl from the old apartment flickered through my mind, the one who thought staying small would save her. I wasn't her anymore. "Yes," I said. "I'm absolutely going to marry you." Relief flashed across his face before he slid the ring onto my finger. His hands shook, just slightly. It made my chest ache. "It suits you," he said. "So do you," I said. He kissed me, slow, certain, nothing to prove. Just a promise. By the time we reached the loft, my phone was buzzing again. A new alert from our system. Suspicious campaign donations. A crooked council member. Another pattern only someone like me would see. Roman glanced at the screen. "Want to take it?" "Absolutely," I said. Because I wasn't the frightened woman waiting to be believed anymore. I was the one building the cases, designing the battlefield. And this time, when the powerful fell, it would be because I'd decided they were done.